from Texas. I'm here to talk to you about planting potatoes. It's February 5th, which for my area is about right in the middle for planting potatoes. A lot of people try to plant potatoes around Valentine's Day if you're a little bit further north. But what I do is I'll bed the beds up here to start with a couple of weeks before. They've had rain on them. I bed them up using this hoe here. This is just a regular standard hoe. And then this one is used for making furrows. And that's where I took a bed look like this, furrow down it, so I can get the potatoes down into the ground. Now, on the potatoes, I do cut my potatoes, make them go a little further. They'll make a little bigger potatoes when you do cut them. If they're about this size, you can leave those whole. That's really not worth cutting and measuring it out because you don't have as much vitality to it. The other ones, this one's a bigger potato, I cut it, and then I let it set for a day or two so this here will heal over because this can be a spot that starts for rot. What I'm going to be doing, as you can see through the line, I just put the potatoes down. I put the eyes sticking up. They're about a foot apart. You may want to start measuring when you first start. They're right at 12 inches because sometimes if you say a foot apart, some people's idea of a foot is 8 inches, other people's is 16 inches, so it varies. So try to get kind of started out with this, about a foot apart, and then you once you kind of get an eyeball for it, you go on, and there's no use measuring it. That just takes too much time. Now, where do you get the potatoes? Go to your feed store. They're going to have some seed potatoes. If you're not real particular about the type of potatoes, the good thing about potatoes is if you go to the feed store, they're usually going to have the type of potatoes that will do well in your area. That's not always true for other things, but from what I've noticed, that does tend to be what they do. Now, they're going to tend to have the red potatoes because the red potatoes do better, but the flavor is usually not as good. So if you're going to go for another variety, you're going to order them off from a place. They don't really like using, you don't really want to use store-bought potatoes because if they're non-organic, they may have inhibitors to keep them from sprouting. The other thing is they can have disease on them because they don't, they don't check them for disease. Seed potatoes, they do. Stores you buy, the ones you buy in the store don't. So you do have a greater chance of introducing disease if you use store-bought potatoes. And as far as cost, I mean, these potatoes I got for 69 cents a pound. Some other potatoes, I bought a 50-pound burlap bag. At one place, there was $26 for 50 pounds. Another place was $30.40 for a 50-pound bag. And guys, as a lady at the counter kind of laughed because I really don't need about 10 pounds, but she kind of asked me, well, use the other. We're growing potatoes, so you want the potatoes. So whatever I don't plant here, we're going to use like regular potatoes, and we may even can some of them. I got 50 pounds. Probably gonna have 40 pounds extra. So always kind of remember that. The seed potatoes aren't that much more cost. What I'm going to do, I'm going to plant them. I'll cover them back up. Then I'll use this hoe here to cover them back up, and then I'll come back once they sprout and get about 6 inches tall. I'll come back and I'll work this up here. I'll work this area in between up, and then I'll throw that dirt on top of the potato plants. If they sprout and you start getting some cold weather coming in, just cover them. And if it's not real cold, they can survive some cold. Even if they're bit back, most of that's growing underneath the ground. As long as that ground doesn't freeze, they're still going to come back. Or you can take some hay or whatever, throw on top of them, or throw some more dirt on top of them. So unlike tomatoes or peppers, you can plant these earlier because there are, they can take a frost and still come back. If I have a heavy frost comes on these potatoes and they're sticking up out of the ground, it kills them back to the ground, they're still going to pop up some new growth in a week or two. So remember that. Potatoes take, I believe, about 90 days to make, 85 to some of them take 120 days. When they start dying and you start getting a lot of death on them, that's when you're gonna dig them up. As long as they're growing good, even if they're growing kind of diseased, you want to give as much time as you can, unless you're fixing to get a big rain. Now, right over there, I grew some potatoes 2 years ago, and we just so happened to get 16 inches in one night. The next 4 days, we got an inch each day. I had dug a few of them the weekend before. It was on a Monday when we got the rain. That next weekend, it was too wet. I did get out there and muck in some of them, got some of them out. So the next week after that, I knew a bunch of them were rotten, and me and another a girl that lady brought her teenage daughter over. I said they could have the potatoes, but we didn't need to dig them to get them out of the garden. So we went out there and dug the potatoes. There's nothing nastier than a rotten potato. And we would dig the potatoes. You'd hear it pop and you knew one was rotten. If it was her side, I would laugh at her. If it's on my side, she laughed at me. And we had a good time, but it was some dirty work. So if you're gonna have a big rainfall, go ahead and dig those potatoes even if it's a week or two early, or 3 or 4 weeks early. But because they will rot in the ground. But other than that, potatoes are fun to grow. Kids enjoy it. You can dig them up. You'll probably want to get some type of a fork or whatever those, I should have brought it out here, a fork that you can stick underneath them and pop them up. Makes it easier. But we enjoy it. They do well in raised beds because they're going to be drier, have better drainage areas, so you can do them in raised beds. Plant them about 1 foot apart, and I think you'll be happy with them. And again, that's one of the fun things in gardens to grow is grow some potatoes. Thank you.